For today's opener, I have a question for you guys watching, especially Warlock mains. How many Nova Bombs do you think I can fire off in one full Salvation's Onslaught? That meaning 50 rounds. How many Novas can I get in 50 rounds? I'll give you guys a couple seconds. If you guessed around 30, congratulations, you were close. I'm just kidding, you actually weren't close at all. You were off by a country mile. The correct answer was 60 Nova Bombs. That's right, this build can make you fire off more Nova Bombs than there are rounds inside of Onslaught. Now I'm sure there's going to be skeptical people that don't believe me when I say that, so here's a clip. Yeah, so as you can see, the super regen is kind of crazy. I have no issues getting my super in a very, very short amount of time with this build. Also, you may notice this throughout the video, but you get your prismatic meter incredibly fast as well. Now, not as many as Nova Bombs, like I mentioned with 60, but I think I probably had prismatic maybe 20 times around there. I wasn't counting the prismatics, but it was quite a bit. So let's just jump straight into the build. Now, normally I talk about the exotics and the abilities of a build to start off, just to get the concept going, but I think for this particular build, I'm going to start out with fragments first, as it'll make a lot more sense why I chose these fragments while I'm talking about the abilities afterwards. So that said, let's go with the fragments. We have 5 fragments here. From left to right, we have Facet of Grace. Defeating targets with kinetic weapons grants you bonus transcendent energy, and defeating targets with your super grants you and your nearby allies bonus transcendent energy. Number 2 is Facet of Dawn. Powered melee hits against targets make you radiant. Number 3 is Facet of Sacrifice. While you have an Arc Solar or Void buff, ability Final Blows grant bonus darkness energy. Number 4 is Facet of Dominance. Your Void Grenades weaken, and then your Arc Grenades will jolt. Number 5 is the staple, Facet of Protection. While surrounded by commands, you are more resistant to incoming damage, and while you're Transcendent, the effect is increased. Now let's jump into abilities. So obviously we're running Nova Bomb Cataclysm on Prismatic here. Then in our actual abilities category, first we have our Rift, or rather, the replacement to the Rift, Phoenix Dive. So the reason I have Phoenix Dive here is because, one, it could be used in the air or on the ground in a fast pinch just to heal you, and you won't be stuck in animation. But 2, and more importantly, when you do Phoenix Dive, you activate Cure, which is a light buff for your character. Now, I mentioned earlier, when you have a light buff while having Facet of Sacrifice, ability Final Blows will grant you bonus darkness energy. So, while you have a light ability active, you throw your Nova Bomb, kill a bunch of stuff, boom, bonus transcendent energy for your dark meter just like that. Next is our melee. There's a couple of reasons why I went with this. Number 1, it's a ranged melee whenever I need one to proc Radiant if I want to. Number 2, it's a darkness debuff in the event that you want to run Facet of Courage to increase your damage on Nova Bomb. And number 3, you get 3 copies of this melee, which will matter when I talk about our aspects in a second. But finally, in abilities, we have our grenade. Of course, I'm going with Vortex Grenade. It synergizes very well with this build. It's a good AoE grenade to throw on the ground. You have to aim it like a sticky grenade, so it's perfect for this build. And as for our aspects, the first one is Feed the Void, which goes great with Vortex Grenade. Feed the Void allows you to get Devour when you get any ability kill, which is very easy with this build. And additionally, obviously, every time you get a kill, Devour will heal you, and you will get improved grenade energy as well. Also, while you have Devour active, that is another light buff. It's a Void buff, which means, again, Facet of Sacrifice would be live. And speaking of getting easy light buffs, number 2 for our aspect is going to be Lightning Surge. While sliding, you activate your charge melee ability to blink forward, call down lightning, and you jolt a bunch of targets. So, this does multiple things here. First, it'll activate Devour because this is an ability kill. Then, it'll also activate Radiant because it's a melee ability kill. So, not only will you have Devour, but you also have Radiant active off of this as well. And since you have Devour active, after you do your melee, if you were even hit by anything, you will get healed with Devour active. 3, since you have a light buff active, in this case Devour and Radiant, you again will proc Facet of Sacrifice to give you bonus darkness energy. And since Lightning Surge is a light ability, you just got light energy for killing that mob of enemies. And don't forget, even if you think a wave in front of you is tanky, you could first throw your grenade, which will then weaken them thanks to our Dominance Fragment. then slide into them, probably killing all of them anyway. But that's not all. There's 2 more things Lightning Surge will do for us in this situation. First, we're going to make at least 1 Aura of Power. This is thanks to having Heavy-Handed in our gloves as a mod. Then, it'll also give us bonus super energy on our kills because of another mod in our helmet called Hands On, which gives bonus super energy on melee kills. So basically, getting this little tiny 2-step combo off gives you like 7 different things towards this build. And this is not even the core of the build, by the way. So let's talk about that core, and that is the 2 exotics for this build. First is the armor. We're rocking Skull of Dire Ahamkara. This exotic was nerfed into the ground, never to be seen again, but it's actually really good now. So the perk states, provides additional damage resist while using Nova Bomb, and then Nova Bomb Final Blows and Weapon Final Blows while you have Devour active, grants you super energy. Now this on its own is already good. You can get a decent chunk of super energy back just by firing Nova Bomb at a random wave of enemies, but we're going to combo off this armor piece with an exotic weapon. And that exotic weapon is the recently buffed Bad Juju. This thing is low-key a super regen monster, as you've probably already seen on screen throughout the video, but I just cannot state enough how good this actually is now. For its perk, String of Curses, it states, kills refill the magazine, increase damage for a short duration, and grant you super energy based on the strength of String of Curses, and also fires in full auto. And for its catalyst, defeating targets using Bad Juju will then extend the duration of String of Curses. Before I talk more about the build concept and the loops, I just want to talk about the mods. Now first, for the artifact, I want to mention, you actually don't need anything in the artifact. Nothing is mandatory. You can use this build moving on to the next episode and be totally fine. Now, there is one mod that you could slide in if you'd like. That's up to you, which is in the last column, which is Conductive Constant Crystal, specifically because your void abilities, in this case Nova Bomb, would do more damage to enemies that are debuffed by stasis, and then there's a tonic that also increases the damage if you are, again, debuffing something with stasis. That's specifically for bosses if you want to run into that situation where you want to put on Courage and then Conductive Cosmic Crystal, just so your Nova does more damage. Outside of that, you don't need anything in the artifact. Now, as for armor mods, I'm going to talk about some of them here, the main core ones, but the whole build will be seen on Dim with a link down in the description below if you want to try out the build yourself, and also follow the social media down there if you want. So, let's talk about some important mods. In the helmet slot, I think all 3 mods that you can slot in here are actually very helpful. The first is going to be Hands On, that I briefly mentioned earlier. When you do get melee kills, you gain bonus super energy because of this mod. So anytime that you can slide into a group of enemies just to proc the 18 different things that I already mentioned, you will also get bonus super energy on your meter like that. The second mod is going to be just a common one, which is Kinetic Siphon, to feed into your Bad Juju. You're going to get a ton of kills with this weapon already. You might as well be making orbs while doing it. And in the last slot, we have one extremely underrated mod that most people probably don't even know exists. That is Font of Wisdom. This mod allows you to get a bonus of plus 30 into your intellect stat anytime that you have an armor charge active. And spoiler alert, 90% of the time you will have an armor charge with this build. So if you're somebody that's running low intellect on your armor, you just slot this puppy in and you get a plus 30 to your intellect stat, which translates into your super coming back faster on top of everything else that you're already doing. For gloves, 2 mods that are helpful are going to be Kinetic Loader, which is self-explanatory for your Bad Juju to reload faster. And then the second one is going to be Heavy-Handed, that I alluded to earlier. When you get powered melee final blows, you create an Orb of Power. So when you slide into a wave of enemies with the slide, you will make an orb, which will then turn into a surge for you, / an armor charge, which will then give you Radiant, and Devour, and bonus super energy, and 86 different other things. So it's a really helpful mod in this build. The next mod is Bad Juju. Well, not the gun, but mods for Bad Juju. That is Surge mods. You'd be surprised at how many people do not take advantage of 3 copies of a Surge mod. This is a build that you absolutely want to take advantage with 3 copies of Kinetic Surge. You're getting 1,000,000 kills with Bad Juju, which translates to you getting a ton of super energy. You might as well spec into increasing the damage of Bad Juju, so run 3 Kinetic Surge mods in your boots. Finally, I have 2 recommendations for your class item slot. These 2 mods are the following. Number 1, Powerful Attraction. This is specifically because you're going to make a ton of orbs everywhere throughout whatever arena you're in, whether it's Onslaught, Nightfall Strikes, and so on. So what Powerful Attraction can do for you is, instead of literally physically running around getting these orbs, when you're in the general vicinity, you can activate Phoenix Dive, then pick up all the orbs that were around you. Not only do you pick up the orbs, but also Phoenix Dive will give you Cure, which is a light buff, which will then proc Facet of Sacrifice, which gives you Darkness Energy. You get the point. It's one big chain. Now, the other mod in the safe choice here is going to be Reaper, because after you use a Phoenix Dive, you just get a weapon kill with Bad Juju, and you make an Orb of Power. Pretty self-explanatory, an extra orb to get your super, right? Now, as for the gameplay loop, typically, you're going to want to start off with getting an ability kill if you can. The main reason for this is because you want to have Devour proc and activate immediately, and then every time you get a kill, you will heal yourself. Additionally, for Skull of Dire Ahamkara, if you have Devour active while throwing your Nova Bomb, you're going to get a bunch of bonus energy back for your super as well. Then, you have multiple ways of activating Devour. You have your Grenade, you have your melee with Lightning Surge, like I mentioned earlier, which will then free you up to getting an orb, bonus super energy, getting Radiant, and so on. So generally, you want to start off with a Lightning Surge into a pack of enemies. Of course, there's exceptions to this, like Exploder, Shanks, or Curse Thrall. Once you connect with your Lightning Surge or your Grenade, you're off to the races. At this point, you just start beaming anything and everything with Bad Juju. In the event that you happen to somehow lose Devour, then you have Cure to activate with your Phoenix Dive to heal yourself a little bit, and then get a light buff going again for Facet of Sacrifice. And from that point, within a matter of seconds, you'll have your first Nova Bomb and your first Prismatic Meter. Now, remember, you want to have Devour active when you throw your Nova Bomb to maximize getting enough super energy back from that Nova. Also, you want to pop Prismatic as much as you can, because when you're in Prismatic, you get a 5% damage boost to your weapons, in this case, Bad Juju. The higher your damage is, the faster Bad Juju kills enemies, and the faster it kills enemies, then the faster you get your super back. And don't forget, when you have Devour active, on top of healing you, it also has your Grenade recharge much faster, which you then can throw to weaken any tanky enemy yellow bar, whether it's a boss, a champion, whatever. So that's the general build concept. I think this build's extremely fun, especially if you're going into content that has a lot of ad density. The more enemies there are, the better this thing becomes. But that's it for the build. If you enjoyed watching or using this build and like to see more videos like this or boss makes in the future, then please consider subscribing to the channel today. It does help the channel grow and is much appreciated. And if you want to go the extra mile, you can leave a like and or comment below as well. If you don't know what to leave as a comment, you can leave Warlock as the comment. Thanks for watching. Catch you next time.